Hello, it's me, Kyle. Welcome to Give Pause Hobby, the channel where I stop to appreciate the things I love to fill my free time with. And welcome back to another edition of State of the Hobby, what I've been up to over the past month. What I've been up to over the past couple of days is getting over just a little version of the stomach bug that kind of plagued the middle school I teach at. And it visited our house on two different occasions with our two kids. Separated by long enough that we thought we made it through without it spreading, and then the second one got it, and then I got, like I said, a teeny tiny version. But I'm feeling great today, so thumbs up. So this month there was a little bit of excitement, a big bit of excitement. My first ever convention that I've actually went to for the day. I've been to Con of the North, which was the convention in question. I've been to it once before, back in 2018, but that was just to do a play test with the game that I was working on, and I didn't know how to do anything at a convention. I didn't have the time to really actually be there for like a whole day. But we're going to talk more about that. That's the big topic of the episode. So let's first get into what I've been playing, and then updates on No Buy 2023, and then convention. So what I've been playing, so this month had a couple of cool things. There's a resurgence of Empires of the North, which is surprising because that game was on my to be traded or sold pile for a while. I just don't think it bit the first time I was playing it, and I enjoyed it to a certain degree. But then I tried one of the solo modes, and I just kind of had it in my head. Root looms so large, I think, in my solo experience, that for a while, anything that wasn't an automa, like it wasn't an opponent that scored points that I had to face off against, I just wasn't interested in. And while I do really love that model, I think that's my favorite type of solo experience, I have come to appreciate over, time, the other types. Now, the one that I'm least kind of interested in is a pure just beat your score. That's not my favorite thing, though I have played a bunch of Ganz schon Klepper, because that's really good at what it does. I'm not good at it, but it's good at what it does. But this is a slight twist because there are the different scenarios, and I played 6 games with all 6 of the factions that I have, and I must have played maybe one was at the end of January, because I have the base game and then one expansion, but I have no idea. There it is. Yep. Apparently I played the other 2 at the tail end of January. So I played the other 6, and I played them all on the same solo scenario. Something about coming winter, and the snow is coming or something like that. It's not quite winter is coming, but it was close. And just so I could get a footing for the different mechanics that are at hand in the different factions. And it was a pretty fun scenario. By the end of it, I was kind of getting a little bit over it, but it was actually a really good way for me to see what makes each of the factions tick. And I gotta say, I'm much more interested in the game. There are a lot more solo scenarios out there. I've just played one 8 times now, 6 of them this month. But also, I do remember it being pretty fun as a multiplayer game. Maybe we'll just have to see if that, it's definitely sticking around, just purely based on how much fun I have with the solos. So thank you, Sam, from Lord of the Board, for inspiring me to do it just by showing how he organizes his box. It's an insight to how my brain works. Another one that was fun that came back was KeyForge, and specifically playing the solo adventures there. You're seeing a theme. And not the Key Racken, but the Abyssal Conspiracy. So I think this was the second one. I think Key Racken came first. And again, I obviously love solo mode. The majority of my channel is dedicated to them. But when I think back to when I was really into Hearthstone, and what like got me into it, because I was playing late beta or like early Hearthstone, and I tried it previously, and I was like, man, I don't know about this. And then what got me in was the Curse of Naxxramas, Nax, like solo adventure mode, because it was just so cool to me. Up until that point, it was like Magic but digital, but not MTGO, which I played a bunch of Magic and MTGO. And Hearthstone, I know, was different, and I spent a lot of time on it, so I know quite a bit of how it's different. And in a lot of ways, it takes advantage of what it is, which is just a purely digital card game. It doesn't have to spare a thought for how it would translate to be paper, because it's never going to be. And I thought it was just super cool that a game that I was at that point like equating to be like another Magic was just like, what if this card game but against a solo opponent, like an adventure opponent? And I'd played in college a lot of testing games where I just two-hand a deck I'm working on and a deck that I have established, especially when I was working in the parking services at the university, and there weren't people leaving the parking lot. Back when they had people at all of those booths, I would just have two decks going a lot of the time, and I'd be trying to like separate my brain out just to see if this deck works. And that was like as solo as Magic got. And to me, Hearthstone having these solo adventures, I was like, this is so cool. And honestly, one of the through lines of my Hearthstone experience was loving the solo modes. So when I heard that KeyForge had that, because KeyForge was exciting to me, and then it just like fizzled out completely. But then this fall, I had found out about and print and played the Keyraken, because that was how it was originally put out. Something you could print however you wanted and just use it right from the website. And then when it went to Ghost Galaxy, they took those things and they are re-releasing them where you pay, but then you actually get real cards, and there's rules changes and all that. So I have Abyssal Conspiracy, the official one, Keyraken PNP'd, and I played that a bunch back in the fall, and now I'm playing again a bunch with the other adventure, and I'm really excited because with the Winds of Exchange, I didn't go like crazy into their forthcoming expansion, but I did go into it, and I did buy the House of Gormgeist, I think, which is their third solo adventure. So I'm really excited. I just think it makes for a really cool system, and it's a lot of fun. So a lot of the playing that I've been doing, like the big ticket items, are going to be in the convention talk at the end, but a couple of other things that come to mind. Untamed finally got in, and it's a blast. It is essentially Magic meets mashup or smash up, and it's really cool, as opposed to smash up where you have like the different bases that you're trying to put enough power in to pop them and then you get points. You're just trying to deal face damage, 21 total face damage to take out the opponent, but it's split up over 3, like, I can't remember what they're called, fortresses or something, and each of them is each faction of creatures, so it's feral factions is the subtitle, and so there's the tigers and the raccoons and the rats and stuff, and each deck has, I think, 5 unique cards and 3 or 4 copies of it, and then 1 base that comes with it. And so they all have their own like thematic, obviously, but also mechanical bend, and then the base sort of reflects that, and each base has 7 hit points. Once you do 7 or more damage to it, it just takes up any extra. Then the base gets borked, you move it off, and then they get a free draw as a consolation prize, and then they are 1/3 closer to being dead. So it's kind of nice because there really isn't a way to like OTK someone if you build up a huge machine for like all the early game, and then it's just like boom, I win the game, because you have to go through 3 bases. So if you can do that in one turn but split into 3 categories, then you can. But it's kind of nice that it's just like, nope, you have to chip away at these 3 different things. And the factions all have different, I said, mechanical differences that go along with the thematic stuff. Like, you know, the type of animal they are is probably going to associate with the mechanics they've applied to them. And you take 3 animals, factions, and you shuffle them together, and then you have those 3 fortresses or strongholds, that's what it's called, and you can put them in whatever order you want, which is becoming like, we've only played 3 games so far, but it's immediately becoming like a really cool strategic decision of when do I want, because they have different abilities. They're not just like faces to punch. Each stronghold has an ability you can pay to do. So do you want that early game, mid game, or late game? And yeah, it's super fun. So Feral Factions, tell your friends. Speaking of games that arrived that we finally got played, this one arrived a little bit ago, Dandelions, and it's great. That's all I have to say. It's just like this really quick area control game where you are different factions of dandelions, and you're spreading your seeds, your dice around this board, and you're moving your big pawn. And it's fantastic. It's really fast. It's really smart. It only plays 2 to 3 players. I'm excited to see what 3 players is going to be like, because it's going to be a lot more chaotic. But even at 2 players, I think it's a lot of fun. Yeah. One really fun, like just extra special shout out is we have played a few games of what we have called Snapdragon, which is our Frost family version of Egyptian rat slap or rat screw or whatever you call that game, where you're just playing cards. You can slap doubles and take the whole pile, but then if you play ace, king, queen, or jack, the next player has 4, 3, 2, or 1 card to play their own face card, and if they don't, you take the whole pile. So that's Rat Slap, which I played just a tremendous amount of hours worth in high school. And this is Snapdragon. So I think it was inspired by a little snippet in a Bluey episode. And our daughter was really into like seeing matching things and like snapping them, not slapping, she was snapping them. And so we came up, and I was like, I can't remember what we were using. It was not workable though. And I was like, I have an idea. And I just got like a random deck of cards from downstairs. And I just showed them, what the deck of cards made up of, the 4 different suits, the different numbers, and the face cards. And I was like, let's play this. And there's no face card rules in this. All you're looking for are matching values, like numbers or face card values, or suits. That's it. Then you snap it, and then you get the pile. And I've been, a little bit slow rolling, or maybe a medium bit slow rolling, because I'm not gonna lie, my reaction time is pretty good in Rat Slap after how many days of playing it I've had. But there have been some time where our daughter has really genuinely snapped one up, and it's been super fun. The last bit of playing has been a resurgence of light board gaming on a few titles, but namely Fireball Island. Now, light board gaming, if you're hearing this for the first time, that is where I am playing a board game from our collection with one or both of our children, and we're just playing with the components. There aren't any rules, aside from maybe rules that we make up. And to me, as I've said other times, board games are just boxes of toys with rules that come with it. And growing up, I lived that oftentimes with my brother and my cousins, because we would have some of these games. My mom was selling Discovery Toys for a while, and so she would get these board games in that we had no idea how they were played, and we still just made stuff up and had a great time. And Fireball Island for a while was just like one of my daughter's favorites, and it has become my son's favorite as well. So yeah, the Kano game for the volcano game. So Fireball Island gets a seal of approval on components alone. I do really enjoy Fireball Island, Curse of Volcar, so I don't mean to like bash it that way. I just want to say, eliminating the rules and just looking at the components, it still gets the seal of approval. Speaking of seal of approval, February in terms of no buy 23 has come and gone, and I did pretty well. So last month I didn't spend any money. It was all, well, okay, so it's a little bit hinky here. I did spend money, but they were from gift cards or from that Trumpet Courier, the money I made from that. This time around, I spent $30, and on my list of things that, like, I was tracking, things that, you know, popped up in my head, like, ooh, that would be fun. I do notice that the numbers are ticking up in terms of, there were no, like, the 5 category, the absolute need, in quotes. I didn't have any of those in January. I had a bunch of 1s, bunch of 3s, 1 4 and 1 2. And then in February, I had no 1s, so no passing fancies. Supposedly everything could be nice or above. I had a bunch of 2s, bunch of 3s, 1 4, 2 5s, and then 3 6s, which is the new category for things I actually bought. So I printed off some things for my new prototype, or new things for my old prototype, food truck fight. That was $5, and then $25 is what I actually spent, because I got some Mario bucks, as I call it, to, you know, overall, I'm so far down in terms of spending that I'm just socking away a little bit here and there. So at some point in the spring, maybe not right when it comes out, but at some point I want to get Advance Wars Boot Camp or Reboot Camp for Switch, because that game was one of like the biggest hypes when Game Boy Advance came out, and I'm just super excited for when that comes out. So I think I just put $20 in there to my account, and then maybe like $10 a month until that game comes out, to just sort of sock it away instead of a big purchase all at once. And compared to months in the past, this is big progress. So I did technically break the pact, but not board game wise. I did buy one game with that Mario bucks, however. I meant to put in what I've been playing, which is SteamWorld Dig 2, and I only did that because I was sick. Again, not a huge stomach bug, but big enough that Monday was rough, and Tuesday was much better, but still just like lots of resting. And I loved SteamWorld Dig on, what did I play that on? 3DS? And then I played it again on, that must have been on DS first, and then I played it again on 3DS, and they never came out with SteamWorld Dig 2 on the handheld systems. I think that was only on Switch, which I didn't have until now I do, and it's awesome. I love the first game. The second game is super fun. It's a Metroidvania where you're mining out the earth from under you to get the stuff, but you need to find the places where you get the upgrades, which then unlock different areas that you couldn't get into before, that whole thing. But it's just fantastic. It is super, super, super fun. So highly recommend. If you have not played, I would probably play the first one first, because there's no way you're ever going to go back once you play the second one. And it's not like a huge thematic tie, but there definitely is a storyline element where if you play the first one, you're like, oh. So SteamWorld Dig, tell you and your friends. So on to the big topic for the month, which is my first ever convention. So this is Con of the North, which is a Twin Cities, Minnesota convention. And I don't know what the number of attendees at it is. It is a 3-day thing that I was just able to go for one. In the future, when schedules and life is different, I think it'd be a lot of fun to train up to a point where I could maybe get a hotel room in the block of rooms and then be there for a whole weekend. But I had a bunch of fun. It was for my first time ever going to one and really like participating. It was a blast. I think that was solely because I grouped up with BotBot and then we sort of shared plans, or rather he shared his proposed plan that he had come up with his friends, and then I just like grouped up with them. So I got there after they had started Ark Nova, so I essentially learned a game of that, and took a lap around the convention area just to see. Again, it'd been 4-5 years since I'd been here, and I wanted to see what was different, and look at it a little bit, with new eyes. So I think as a first-time convention attendee, I had maybe unrealistic expectations of like just walk around and say like, hey, you want a game? Like, there's so many games going on that it takes a considerable amount of effort to make another one happen. And so luckily I was able to get back in 2018 a couple playtest games because I had booked them, like I had scheduled them so people could sign up for those tickets. And then I got a couple of other people who just sort of noticed it and like joined in, which was great. But this time we were in the open play area where there's just a bunch of tables and people use them as much or as little as their groups want. And BotBot's idea was just, and his friends, like, we're gonna claim a table and we're gonna schedule out the day. And you can be here for as much or as little of it as you want. And I kind of just said, great, because Ark Nova, which I didn't get to play, but looks awesome. I definitely want to play it. A game of Root is a 3-player game with hirelings, but on Slugface Killa's custom map, I believe this was the urban map, which was just a magnificently repurposed map of Kyle Farron like building art from Oath, and then a really cool, like a small but interesting twist where there's 3 ruins that are always going to be there, and then the 4th one you roll the die to see where it's going to go, and there are 4. Normally it's just like the R that's in the little building slot, but there are 4 clearings that have 0, 1, 2, and 3 in one of their building slots, and whichever one you roll, that's where the 4th ruin goes, which I think, just a small but really interesting change to the game. And it was an all militant game, moles, rats, and birds, and I'm not good with the birds, but I managed to sneak out a victory solely because of coffin makers, and primarily because of coffin makers, but secondarily because nobody drew any sabotage or saboteurs. Nobody drew any sabos to take it out. So I made 11 points over the course of the game, which meant I would have had 19 points without. I mean, I obviously would have played maybe a little differently, but when I got that, and not only did I get it, and I had the roosts make it, but there was in the turn that elapsed, when I drew the card, I already had 1 rabbit clear and I just needed 1 other one. when it came around to John's turn, we had the the Woodland Uprising, or Spring Uprising, like the demoted side. We had the Popular Band, and then the Raven Spies. The Raven Spies are ridiculous, like super awesome, and you get to pop 2 up somewhere and then either attack with all of them, like in any of the clearings that they're in, or steal a card from any players that are in a clearing with a Corvid Spy. And in that turn that I got Coffin Makers, I was chosen as the person to steal a card from because it happened to the other player the previous turn, and he didn't draw Coffin Makers. I think he drew my ambush, which, he like celebrated about, and I, made a Poe face like, oh no. But then like the very next turn, the first thing I did, I was like, good. So like, yeah, it sucked losing the ambush, but not as much as losing Coffin Makers. Man, using the hirelings is just so great. Every game I play with them, and most of those have been solo, so using like the fan-made versions of how to use the hireling, using them with other players is just awesome. I love it so much. Yeah, very, very, very good. After Root, we played Elder Sign, which is fun. I'm not like the biggest fan of. It's just a very. There are things you can do on other players' turns, but for instance, after one of my turns, we played with 5 players. After one of my turns, given the speed that the players were rotating around previously, there was an opportunity where I could go meet Brooke from Leader Games at the convention, like the merchant room. That's not a name. And I just like, I'm gonna go see Brooke, and I just like ran and did that, and then ran back, and it was like, boom, my turn at that moment. And we didn't have like a short conversation. It wasn't like super long, but it was my first time seeing her in meatspace as well as BotBot. So it was like a really cool thing. Again, conventions, woo, people get together. But yeah, I was able to get back, and it was like just my turn. We won the game somehow. And I mean, a big part of that somehow was I just didn't lose. Every turn I got, I was able to do, no matter how difficult the task was. And I like fluctuated. I was like, all right, I'm going for this big one. I'm like, okay, my luck has to run out. I'm going to go for this easy one. Get that. All right, going for a big one. I never missed anything. And that cannot be said for the other players in the game. But yeah, Elder Sign is pretty fun. I probably would have, the other ones up for contention for that like time slot were my copy of Irish Gauge and BotBot's Ryan Baru, and I probably would have been more excited to do either one of those than Elder Sign, but fun to have a little bit of co-op. And then after Elder Sign, we went to the like premiere slot of the day, which was John Company 2.0. And that was 6 hours, and it was pretty intense. There were some moments where intentions were misread, agreements were not understood, and I, as the outsider with 3 other people who knew each other, I was pretty happy to have a mask on because I'm sure my face would have looked like for like a protracted amount of time. I think I took 3rd in that game, surprisingly, only because I won on power at the end. Like I eked out enough power to get like, what was it, 6 victory points at the end. Otherwise I would have been like neck and neck for last. There was a moment where we thought we had a power play to do something that would have completely changed the game, but we lost the chairman position, which we thought was a lock, and that was a moment of the misunderstanding. And then in the like preceding game after that, control that we assumed that we were going to have, we obviously didn't, and we deregulated, and those who dove in on the deregulated, the private firm, they were, first and second by like 1 or 2 points away from each other. So it was really fun because it's my first time playing with deregulation and firms, and I can definitely see where that would be, the real like full experience of John Company, but it definitely like changes a lot of the calculus of the game, which I think there's only one way to find that out, which is just to do it one time where you might get completely hosed, or maybe just get lucky that you jumped on board with the firm, because there's really no way to explain how drastically it's going to change the game. But I'm excited to unpack that more and introduce that to friends. And then that was the end of the day. That was me leaving at about midnight, and I got there at 9. Just after 9, I think. It was a long day. It was 10 and a half hours of games. Like, the rest of it was the interstitial time between games. And yeah, what's really cool, and maybe this is the way of other conventions as well, and I'm just a noob to all of it, but what Con of the North has with like the ticket buying system, you can host games, which I bought like the $5 more pass to be a host of games, but then I never actually wound up using that. I was planning on bringing the same prototype that I did 5 years ago, which used to be computer based, and now it is food trucks, and I think a better game. But I just missed the deadline to actually sign up for it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it, and I wound up just playing games. So you can sign up to host events and then say this is how many seats it has, like time length, difficulty, or like complexity, age level, and this is when it's happening. And so I'm excited for next. I'm like tentatively thinking this can be an event that I can look forward to annually, maybe, like the years where there's not a good reason why it can't happen, because it is real close. It's a 30-minute drive for me. It's in the Twin Cities area, and I know at least a couple of people who frequent the con, and I think it's super smart to group up for the day, which maybe I can convince some of my friends to like group up, or we'll see. But I think if I were to do it again, or when I do it again, the plan is to maybe not just obviously selfishly host a play testing of my game, because there are conventions like protocons or protospiels for that sort of thing. So and I'm probably gonna get better feedback at those, or I'm definitely gonna get better feedback at those anyways. But there are a ton of games that I have in my collection that I know pretty well that I would be excited to host, and you can actually say like, will the host be playing, yes or no, in your like thing. And I can even say, like, I've table nannied, like super table nannied things before. I'd happily do that for any number of games that I think are great and that more people need to play. So I think tentatively, when I go next year, that's kind of tentatively the plan, to choose a game that I'm willing to host, and maybe do that. And if there's a lack of players, then I can host and play, but go in there saying like, I'm just here to teach and guide, and then show other people a good time, and then maybe link up with the group before or after that to play a couple of like set games. The one thing I will say is I just cannot do the I got in at like close to 1, and then I had to like wind down after the day. I mean, because the thing about playing board games all day is like the brain is exercising in a way that like if you work out all day, your muscles are going to be sore at the end. I feel like my brain wasn't sore, but it was just like spinning, and I had pretty like clear dreams when I finally did fall asleep of like other ways I could have played in the games that happened, and just to show like how how fast my brain was spinning. And the next day, it felt like I was hungover, but like mentally hungover, like intellectually, not like drinking wise. And with 2 kids, like that's just felt, I already had to like, rely on the good grace of my partner to like get out of like a whole day of being with the kids. And she had a great day with them. But then the next day I was kind of just like half zombie dad. So I think in the future, like I said, I'd like to host something. I'd like to join in and play with some, people I know, to fill up my time. I don't know if I have what it takes to be one of the people who's just in the open play area, who's just like, hey, I'm playing this. Who wants to come by? Like, I think that would just like 5-alarm like anxiety in my brain just thinking about that. But then I think I would like to like be there right when the bell rings at the start, for that first day of the game, like they played Ark Nova. So then I could dip out at like 7. Which is about when we started John Company. So, we actually started a little before 7, but it was, a super fun time. I'm really glad that I did go. I was wondering, I honestly don't know. We'll see. Maybe with this small con, this is like my like step stool onto bigger ones, but I don't know, because I'm really enjoying how the No Buy 23 is sort of rewiring my brain to love the games that I already own. And I think a tremendous amount of conventions are dedicated to selling and demoing upcoming games. Like selling the new hotness and then demoing the forthcoming hotness, which makes sense. Like I get it. That's what conventions, for whatever it's about, E3 or any given sports ball whatever convention you're going to, they're going to talk about what's hot now and what's coming out next, and board games are no exception. But I'm getting to a point where I'm not so interested in that, nor do I have the expendable income to just always be or the space, like the shelf space, to always be taking in new games. So I think I'm going to gravitate towards conventions that are more playing based, where people come with a mindset of like, what are we playing? Like, what are you bringing? What are we getting to the table? Oh, last thing, this one's going long. If you've made it all the way here, sound off with a JoCo down below, because that was, it was a kind of a grindy game. By the end of it, we were ready for the game to be over. In fact, we like kind of puppeteered like the last, like we could have went another round. It for sure would have ended one round later, but when we got to the end of one of the years, we were just like, let's just like make sure that something in the events in India pile ends the company. And the other people were pretty good with it, because at that point it was nearly midnight. But yeah, JoCo down if you've made it this far, because holy moly. But the last thing I'll say, which was just like kind of odd, the amount of people who are, again, this is a convention that seems more focused on what are we playing, and which maybe more of them are. I just don't know. But there were so many people who rolled up with just tremendous bags, and not just bags, but like bins or like wheeled buggies of games. I'd see people with like 10 plus games, and not like small games. I'm talking like, there was one guy who had a rolling thing with like Nemesis, Monumental, this other game that looked cool. I remember seeing it, but like another big game, and I can't remember any of them. The other space game, Eclipse, the second Eclipse. And those were 4 of his like 10 or more games. Those are humongous games, like in table space and time. And so but I will give him props. He had like a light, like a work lamp that proved that would just attach to his cart. So obviously it was great for his table, but we were like next to his table, so we kind of got some of it as well. But yeah, we talked as the group that I was with. It seems kind of more like a, bit of a pissing contest to be like, look how big a bag of things I have. And the funny thing is, like, so many of them were so many of the same games. Like, I saw so many copies of Ark Nova come in, and you're kind of just like, you don't think there's another one that you can play, which is just kind of a funny part of the hobby. But I will say, that experience of bringing way more games than we actually played. The first time I went to a friend convention, GeekCon, and which is entirely about playing because it's just at a guy's house. We all brought bags of games, and we each played maybe one or two of each of ours. I think I brought probably like 10 or so games, and I got one of mine played because I was the new guy, which I was fine with. But I came in, I was like, well, I'm gonna bring all these games, and we like ranked them on interest. Like, how interested are you in this game, blah, blah, blah. And there's interest all over the place. It's not like the games I had, people were just like, we don't like those games. Like, people told me, like, I would love to play that game. But in a whole weekend, that's a Friday night, full Saturday, Sunday morning, and then you head out at brunch time. In that whole amount of time, with like very minimal downtime, we're like chatting or eating in between games when the next person is setting up the next game. There's a very efficient system, and we still even then got that many games played. And that's what opened my eyes up to be like, holy moly, like, I need to keep track of how much I'm spending, how many games I'm getting, because at that time, like, my acquisition level was just like, and some of those games I got back then are absolute staples that I would not, I can't imagine not having. But there are some that I was like, no, I was just getting it because I'm just in that phase of like getting games. And I realized, like, there's only so much time in the day. Why do I need to feel this like alpha gamer need to be like the guy who gets all the games? Like, if one of my other friends in a game group gets a game that I was interested in and I play their copy, that's great. Use that that's like a benefit, as a bonus. And for a while it seemed like if I wasn't bringing the game to the table, there was something wrong. And yeah, I had to like squash that, because obviously that's a pretty toxic inner voice going on. But anyways, man, this went on for a while. So thanks for hanging out. It wasn't that big of a month for gaming, aside from Con of the North, which was a huge day, and then a bunch of light gamings. I did have those ones from earlier, like the KeyForge and Empires, and so it was a pretty decent month of gaming, but it was just a really good month for me to chat. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say happy gaming. And the next video you will see, I've been going whole hog into the So What's All This About series, which is great, and I'm loving it. Speaking of making the most of the games you already have, but the next videos you're going to see are actually going to be some teaching videos again, about solo modes, just the solo modes. So called Solo Section, because I'm a music educator and a geek. So look out for that, because that will be the next video coming up. And then I'll probably maybe alternate between that and SWATAs. I'm, again, really loving those, but I'm missing that specific feeling of teaching stuff as opposed to just talking about it. So with that, thanks for taking a pause with Give Pause, and we'll see you next time.